Can you hear me?
Yeah, totally. You
Well,
got
thanks
some.
very much for having me.
Oh man, thank you so much for coming on board and being one of our many Dynamite speakers for Paul Festival. Thanks again so much.
Sure, I'm very happy to do it. So David J. Thoreau is going to be speaking there as well. Is that right?
Yeah, isn't that great?
Yeah, that's really something else.
We got Adrian Moore, Vice President of Reason Magazine, and I'm trying to get Marijuana Policy Project in and Normal, trying to get on that next week, and other groups and so on. And so yeah, it's just really cool, and lots of leaders and activists, and just kind of like everyone.
Sounds like a good time. Hey, it's called Paul Fest. It's got to be great, right?
Definitely. Well, it's really neat. I've interviewed with you in the past, so it's kind of neat to hear, see the tides turn around a little bit here. But in any case, I recall, interviewing was out in California, and you were with Anti-War for quite a while, but now you do your own show here, the Scott Horton Show. Can you tell us some more about, your background and your history, and why is it that we invited you to Paul Festival? Obviously, I want you to yourself for many reasons why we did.
Well, I don't know. I think you'd probably have to answer all that, but I've been doing pirate radio, in different forms of legit radio too, I guess. But mostly, I've been a pirate radio guy since about 1998, and I'm an individualist anarchist, a libertarian anarchist, and yes, I was working with antiwar.com for, I don't know, 7 or 8 years, something like that, because I do put foreign policy as my highest priority. Other people have their favorite battles that they pick. But for me, I think foreign policy is the most important issue for libertarians to fight. As long as they can say, oh, but don't you know it's wartime and it's an emergency right now, then it makes it so much more difficult for us to even really contemplate repealing the Patriot Act, abolishing the Department of Homeland Security, repealing the 21st century, which would be a good start, right, on undoing the revolution within the form that they've accomplished just in the last decade or so, where now the president claims the authority to assassinate even American citizens, and have the military arrest us and hold us without charges. This is now official. These kinds of things. It seems to me that the number one determining factor in how our national government behaves toward us here in the country, it's really our foreign policy overseas. And as long as our president is playing his role as commander-in-chief, he's going to get away with bloody murder over there and here. Oh, in fact, Christina, I'm sure you saw the story about how the cops are now to have retina scanners for when they pull us over on the side of the road, basically turning us all into Fallujans. The war that we support against the foreigners ends up coming back and being waged against us here at home. So that's why foreign policy has always been the most important to me. And the reason I left antiwar.com is simply because the libertarian movement lost a major donor, and this one guy represented about 20% of antiwar.com's budget. And it wasn't anything personal or political, just they had to cut 20% of the budget, and I was 20% of the budget. So, I still think it's the most important website in the world, and urge everybody to check out all the news there and the articles that Matt and Jeremy pick out every day as well. It is the most important site in history for sure.
Right, and we know that, the liberty movement, the Ron Paul movement definitely saturated a lot of those funds, and so it's kind of a little bit of a breathing time, and I think that in the near future that there's going to be some bigger things brewing. There's a certain amount of individuals, leaders like yourself, that are really vetted, and I look forward to through Free and Equal. I know you're doing some stuff on Liberty Chat, your own show, and I look forward to seeing what direction you go in and reaching out to some of the key people and connecting with them at Paul Festival. It'll be a great opportunity.
I want to try. I guess, you did sort of set me up to say something about my new thing, and I didn't take the opportunity. It's ScottHortonShow.com is where I keep the archives of all my interviews. There's about 2,500 of them going to 2003 now, and that's been my site this whole time. I just never really focused on it very much. But I'm going to have a new site at ScottHorton.org. And I've been, I should say thank you very much to everybody who's contributed so far to this fund drive that I'm holding. There's been a lot of great donors, and we do monthly donations, and we're now setting up the Google Wallet and WePay and give.org and all of these other Bitcoins and every kind of crazy thing if people want to donate that way, those ways. And also I'm looking for and I'm lining up advertisers and sponsors for the show so I can continue going forward. It's on Liberty Radio Network. The show is still, I should say, on the Liberty Radio Network every day from 12 to 3 Eastern. And I'm going to keep it going as long as I can. But I got to be able to afford health insurance or I have to go and get a real job. So I guess we'll see how it goes.
I look forward to linking to your website very soon. And if I may, I wanted to respond to, and I think you're going to be able to pull it off, Scott, because I just see it. But in any case, if I may respond on the foreign policy issue, it's definitely something that I'm very passionate about, as well as the legalization of marijuana movement and so on, the GMO, electoral reform, and learning much about it. I definitely can't speak as intelligently about you on the issue. I know and experience that face-to-face about a year and a half or so ago, going down to Costa Rica. It's been a sovereign country since the 1960s, and it was interesting to sit down. I was definitely privileged, honored to be invited to, hang out at the presidential house there and meet one-on-one with the vice president of Costa Rica, Alfio Piva. So our 15-minute conversation turned out to be over 2 hours. And I learned so much, internally. They're very open in Costa Rica. But really coming across that the Obama administration is bullying. Those are the words, bullying the sovereign nation. I've heard from, from the vice president, from the founder of Movimiento Libertario, the Libertarian Party down in Costa Rica, Otto Guevara. And so, what's happening is that between war, the drug war, it's amazing between war and how drugs affects war overseas, and it's just the whole world, how it's all tied together. But now a couple of years, or the previous president, he signed an agreement with the Obama administration to allow like hundreds of ships and helicopters and so on to come down and fight against the drug war. And the vice president himself, he says, I'm for legalization of marijuana. But the sneaky president ahead of time, he signed this agreement. And so the current president, Laura Chinchilla, was stuck in a predicament where she came out in support of a legalization of drugs. Then her party, the Liberation Party, would split. And so it was just a really tough situation. She had no idea when she was elected president that the previous president did this. I guess what I'm getting at is, do you see the tie between, war, the drug war? I mean, we know in Mexico there's been over, 58,000 deaths?
Oh, yeah.
More than Vietnam? I mean, that's just...
Well, remember, Christine, when the Soviet Union fell, they had to have a stand-in before they could, build up friends of the Mujahideen into the next big enemy to fight. And the stand-in was the war on drugs. Right. For, the early 1990s there. It didn't go over all that well because, come on, man, you can have a full-scale foreign policy about cocaine when it's the Republicans are the ones sniffing all the coke anyway. The rest of us can't afford it, right? We're all smoking Mexican dirt weed. They're the ones doing all the cocaine. And while they're locking up anybody who's poor and smoking it, right, at the same time, it's the worst kind of hypocrisy. And I think, any kind of rich, comfortable, middle class or better American who talks to anyone from Latin America or the Caribbean at all will have their eyes completely open as to what a sick, evil empire America is and how, to their eyes, we are this massive behemoth of tyranny to their north, that they're, like we're blocking out the sun or something up there, and we're constantly at threat of, like we're this big rain cloud, and we're constantly threatening to storm down upon them at any time for arbitrary reasons. I met a guy one time who was from the Bahamas who said, to you, Americans, rich, comfortable white Americans, you think of the Coast Guard and you think of boys in these neat white uniforms out there, rescuing vacationers whose engine stalls out or whatever. When we think of the Coast Guard, we think of men in full black ninja outfits with machine guns rappelling out of Black Hawk helicopters and waging war in our neighborhoods, coming in, and here's what they did. This is this one anecdote. They came in, they seized the entire bank and all of the money in it, because they said some drug dealer had money in it. Well, maybe he did too, right? It's not like the banker would even have a choice at that point to have drug money in his bank. But oh well, because whoever you are, if you're from that part of the Bahamas, your account just got taken by the American Coast Guard. Those nice, friendly, most benign of the American armed forces came like stormtroopers in the night and seized the entire thing and shot people while they did it, and et cetera, like that. And that's some guy. I mean, you think of the Bahamas, that's island paradise, right? And if you tell that story, I've told that story to rich white people in America before who say, oh, well, those people are lucky that we go vacation down there and buy their crap and whatever, right? And that's what we think of them, as how lucky they are to have us as tourists in their crappy little country down there. Whereas to them, they think of us as this massive, just unfeeling tyranny that does whatever it wants with no regard whatsoever to their lives. And we're not talking about in the Middle East, right? We're talking about our friendly neighbors down there in the Caribbean. And I bet you, Christina, pretty much anybody's talked with anybody, vice president or some schlub from the neighborhood. You talk to anybody from any of those countries, and they'll tell you a story like that. I got one more. I know a guy named George who was in Rio on September 11th. It could have been Sao Paulo. And it was just like the 50s, like we see on TV, like the Christmas story or whatever, where they have the TVs in the department store window and everybody's lined up on the sidewalk watching the breaking news. You know, it's not much like that here in America anymore, but it used to be, say, the department store window had all the TVs and people would stand out and watch it. Well, he was in one of these major Brazilian cities, I forget, and everyone was standing on the sidewalk watching September 11th unfold in front of their eyes, and they were all not really cheering, but sort of silently pumping their fists and going, yeah. Like, about time that those Americans finally got what they do to everybody else all the time. Now they know what it's like. These are the Brazilians, right? Now the Americans, you ask them, why would a Brazilian ever take pleasure in seeing the Americans have to suffer for a change? Well, there's actually a very long history of America supporting fascist dictatorships that like to torture people to death down in Brazil. That's why. But the American people don't even know the first thing about it. Now, of course, I'm not saying that they were right to feel that way or whatever. I'm just saying they don't feel that way in a vacuum. Somebody made them, put them in a position where they would take pleasure in seeing Americans die by the thousands.
Wow, I had no idea about Brazil, and that's another country I look forward to visiting in the future. I mean, that's just, my head's about to explode. The amount of knowledge that you know, Scott, it just, I mean, it blows me away. It does. I mean, in Costa Rica, that previous president, his name's Oscar Arias. He plans on having his brother run for the next election cycle. You know, and he's all buddied up with the Obama administration, and again, you know, for the drug war. What's so important about Costa Rica is that it's the portal, as I'm sure you're aware of, for drugs coming from Panama, you know, down in Colombia. Costa Rica is the portal for that. So, you know, U.S. government, Obama administration has their hands all over Costa Rica, and Costa Ricans are not happy about it. It's they're really coming out now, of course, publicly, now that time has evolved against drugs, which is great, but, you know, we've lost so much time just because of the politics behind it. But I definitely look forward to Free and Equal holding a panel discussion down there in 2013 in San Jose, Costa Rica. We also have a gentleman by the name of Gerald Murray. Scott, you're going to want to meet him out in Paul Festival. He was the National Youth Coordinator for the current president, Lauren Chinchilla, in Costa Rica. And his great-grandfather was actually the founder of the Liberation Party, which is the largest party which Lauren Chinchilla is under in Costa Rica. His grandfather got booted out of the party because he allegedly didn't pay taxes. You know, so same old, same old. Whether you're Costa Rican, whether you're American, Hispanic, you know, politics seems to be quite similar amongst throughout the world. So definitely somebody you're going to want to meet out there. What are some other hot topics going on in the world? Bryan, welcome back. Great to have you.
Yep, thank you.
Scott Horton here. Bryan's really been taking the lead here hosting, and I've missed you. So welcome back. And Curtis as well. And so, but Scott, you know, what are some other things you're really passionate about? I mean, you've been previously with Anti-War a long time. Scott Horton show. let's just say, like, if you're doing an interview today, what would be your hot topic?
Well, I actually had an interviewless show today. I couldn't get a hold of anybody, but the most important thing to cover, the most important thing I was trying to cover on the show today, of course, was the war as it's unfolding in Syria, where the CIA, based in Turkey, is coordinating with the Saudis and the Qataris and the rebels inside Syria to force this regime change by way of civil war. And I don't know the exact numbers of, they say 10 or 20 something thousand people have died so far, and doesn't seem like there's really any good guys. The big news is that the Syrian defense minister and other members of the cabinet were killed in a suicide attack. And so this means that America is on the same side as the suicide bombers in this one against the Shiite Alawite minority that rules the place, the Ba'athist dictatorship. And so, you know, it is a ruthless police state, and all states are illegitimate. Assad's is of the least legitimate in the world, and of course they do rule over the Sunni majority with iron fist. But then again, there doesn't seem to be any angels leading the rebellion in this one either. And whoever the major fear is, and it ain't just me, the major fear is that if Bashar Assad falls, that his entire government will fall, not just him. They won't be able to rig this game where they just replace him with the next mustache in line. Instead, the Alawite Ba'athist dictatorship entirely will fall, which means the coalition that has supported the dictatorship thus far will have hell to pay. And that means the Druze and the Chaldean and the Syrian Christians and all the other different ethnic minorities, along with the Shiite Arabs, you know, they're gonna, after they lose Damascus, they will still have a lot of hell to pay after that, as the new government, the Sunni-based government, the Muslim Brotherhood-based government takes over. It could be a very bloody civil war for a very long time to come. And Hillary Clinton herself, when making excuses for why it's taking so long, has said, you know, Hamas and Al-Qaeda are on the side of the rebellion. Are we backing Hamas? Are we backing Al-Qaeda in Syria, she said? And then, yeah, she continues to do exactly that, sending arms and coordinating. And they say, well, we want to pick who among the rebels gets the weapons. Well, let me tell you, that ain't how it works. Or we'd be damn lucky for it to work that way. I mean, that's hardly plausible, I don't think. And there really is no very organized force among the opposition other than the Muslim Brotherhood. They're as moderate and conservative as you're going to get out of the people who are doing the fighting on the rebel side. And the whole thing, they talk about, oh, boo-hoo, a massacre here, a massacre there, and they trump them up and blame, you know, people killed in a battle. They say it was a massacre of civilians, which has happened numerous times. You know, you can't take their word for it on any of these Gulf of Tonkin incidents that they keep coming up with to justify it. But if you ask them in a different context, they'll admit straight out, the Democrats admit, the president said straight out to Jeffrey Goldberg at the Atlantic, yes, you're right, this is all about Iran. This is a great way to help weaken Iran, which benefits Israel. Okay, thank you very much. This has absolutely nothing to do with helping the people of Syria at all. And I'm telling you, Christina, this is as stupid as Iraq. This is the war that George W. Bush didn't do. This is the one that all of his worst neocons in the history of mankind, David Wurmser and Richard Pearl and all them, were working for Bush in his government. And we're telling him, do it, do Syria, do Syria. And he said, nah, I don't think so. And now look at Barack Obama doing this thing. And, wow, you know, I don't know where it's going, but it's nothing good.
Wow, I mean, you've really triggered... Oh, please, Kurt.
I was just going to say, Scott, it sounds to me like Operation Ajax all over again, except it's kind of going, they got some wild cards in there to make this thing go crazy.
Yeah, well, and you know, you look at what happened there, it didn't really work out. I mean, they at least knew what they were doing, and they decided they were going to try to reinstall the Shah Pahlavi, Reza Pahlavi, on the throne. In this case, they don't know what in the hell they're doing. I mean, literally, it's a CBS News interview where Hillary Clinton invokes Al-Qaeda being part of the rebellion as one of the reasons why it's taking her so long, right? Because CBS News reporters saying, what's taking so long to go and be the hero and overthrow the bad guys? And so Hillary's got to come up with an excuse what's taking so long. And she literally says, well, you know, Ayman al-Zawahiri just put out a podcast saying all true believers ought to go fight in Syria. So maybe we ought to hold our horses here. Maybe we need to think twice for a second about what it is exactly that we're doing and what we expect to get out of it. Now, she continues on, and I guess she's just on, you know, re-elect us autopilot, and you can't cross the Israel lobby in an election year. I guess you can't cross them at all, really. But they continue to do this thing. I mean, it's now confirmed. We already, at antiwar.com, Phil Giraldi reported this last December. Pepe Escobar's been saying this since last fall as well, last winter as well. But it's now in the Washington Post and the New York Times that, yeah, the CIA is coordinating the whole thing here. So that's Hillary and her boss, Barack, are the ones doing this. And they don't have to. And they could say, you know what, Qatar and Qatar and Saudi Arabia, fine, and turn a blind eye. But no, they're coordinating the whole damn thing. So, I don't know.
So, out of your estimation, Scott, what's the linchpin on all of this? Well, you know, if we're all about, like, trying to stop the war and the insane government spending on military bases or whole imperialistic attitude of the American government, you know, what's the linchpin? How do we stop this? Is it, you know, us people? Is it going after the corporate interest of defense contractors that are getting Horton from Congress? Or, I mean, what do you think the plan is to take this thing down?
Well, you know, my best idea has just been to try to do radio and just try to get the word out that, hey, did you ever notice that everything they ever said about, I don't know, Iran's nuclear program, for example, turned out to just not be true? It's always just a bunch of hype, and maybe the reason they have to lie to us all the time is because none of their actual reasons are good enough for the rest of us to support it, that maybe all this about honor and glory and valor is just, you know, so much ridiculous advertising campaign hype that we would see right through if it was breakfast cereal they were hawking or whatever, and just try to get people to have a change of ideas, you know, where, you know, next time they say, oh my God, look everyone, an incident, we have to do what we say we have to do, that people will say, no, you know what, last time we went along with that and it didn't work out, now that we think about it the last 10 times. So maybe no, you know, maybe it was you guys' fault in the first place or something like that. Right now, there you have a terrorist safe haven growing in Mali. So if Obama says we have to go to Mali, are we going to go to Mali, or are we going to say, no, that's your fault for overthrowing Gaddafi in Libya? And at some point, we have to just stop. And it really is up to the people. Ron Paul says this all the time. The people really get the government they want. And if we insist that our government cease mass murdering innocent people all over the world, then they will have to stop. Or we won't let them be the government anymore. Basically, that's how it works, ultimately. Even, as Ron Paul says, even in a dictatorship, the people get the government they want. If they don't want a dictatorship en masse, they really are sick and tired, and they don't want it, well, we see what happens. The dictator's fault. And so it doesn't have to be this way. It just, people have to stop being so damn impressionable when it comes to what else is going on in the world, you know?
And the dictators will fall, right, Scott?
I'd like to think, you know, in the long term, I'm optimistic.
Well, great. So am I. Kurt, did you have any other questions?
Well, I was just curious of who were some of the other speakers he was looking forward to at Ron Paul Fest. Some of the people maybe haven't had a chance to meet, maybe somebody you're looking forward to meeting or hearing speak when you come down.
You know what? I don't actually have the list,
Scott?
But I would love to meet everybody. You know, I very rarely get out to these sorts of things, so this should be really fun. I'm really looking forward to it.
I guess, Scott, have you noticed a pattern, you know, between the wars in Syria and what we talked about in Costa Rica, Brazil, all these different places? I mean, do you find that the government within all these countries is as jaded, as tainted as it is within the United States? If so, could you elaborate on a few? Just curious.
Whether the governments that we buy up are just as bad as ours, is that what you're asking?
Well, I mean, the politicians in office, the media from all these countries, you know, how are they influenced? How are they funded? We know how they are within the United States, but we can't say it. But, in any case, I mean, do you find a pattern, amongst the politicians in those countries, the media, how they work together?
Yeah. I think, for the most part, politicians are all the same, whether it's Republicans or Democrats or whoever. And people are all the same. Everybody wants attention. Everybody wants approval. So if you happen to be around political class people, then those are the people whose approval you seek. That's basically how it is. That's how Henry Kissinger got all those children killed. I mean, that's the story behind all of this stuff, is that, you have certain people, the more ambitious people, who want to get the most bang for their buck, the most movement on Earth per minute of their day, and they want to be a senator, right? They want to, have the biggest impact of all. Most of us aren't really interested in that kind of thing, I mean, you look at us, we're interested in kind of shining a spotlight on people like that rather than trying to be one of them or whatever. But I think whether you go to Costa Rica or whatever, your average senator, your average legislator, or your average judge or whoever, they're all basically the same kind of criminal. And, really they're smart and mostly well-born kind of criminals, right? Like, if you want to go around destroying people's lives, the best way to do it is become a judge. Right? Then that way you can destroy anyone's life that you want, and you have total immunity and impunity forever. And it's great. Why would you be some two-bit thug and actually end up getting sent to jail by a judge? That wouldn't make any sense, So that's all a politician is to me, is, the worst kind of people.
The Bradley Mannings out there, the Irwin Schiffs, even the Eddie Lepps, all these different people that are, in jail right now. And yeah, the judges, judicial system, that's a whole nother flawed component.
But all the regular schlubs, how many people whose name you never heard of are in jail for no good reason? Even if they did it, it was some stupid thing that doesn't matter anyway, that they didn't hurt anyone anyway, who never will get a famous lawyer, who we'll never even know of, It goes on. People, right now, how many different innocent people are being hauled into jail across this country right now? Like 400 or something? I'm just guessing, but probably a lot.
No, I know
there's a huge, financial incentive for that also, right?
Sure, yeah, the prison guard unions. Hey, you couldn't, if you were a libertarian and you just guessed at how horrible the prison guard unions in America are at lobbying for more laws against innocuous behavior, you couldn't come up with the truth about how bad they really are. Just look at any journalism whatsoever about the prison guard unions, and they're exactly what a libertarian would tell you. They're self-interested, and when a group like that is self-interested, they're self-interested at the expense of the rest of our freedom directly, because, hey, that's their role. That's what they do. They benefit every time someone is added to the prison rolls. And so if they could figure out a way to lobby to have all 300 million of us locked up in there, then that's what they would do. It's up to the rest of us to somehow try to stand in between them and the policy. It's the best we can do. But if you ever thought that the prison guard union wants just enough prisons and no more, you're just wrong, right? They want what's best for them at the expense of everyone else, and that's really what government is, right? Only mostly it's for the powerful. I shouldn't pick on the prison guard unions. They're not nearly as bad as, say, the concrete manufacturers and the iron bar manufacturers, and those are the people who really lobby for the prisons, right? The people who get to put in the snack machines there, those guys are making a killing. And I'm sorry, that's kind of stupid, but I mean that though, right? That's the conspiracy that brings us the drug war in America. It's all these small interest groups that have this consensus against the unorganized rest of us.
Did you want to say something else, Christina? Sorry.
I think you lost your mic, Christina.
Okay, yeah, I'm here.
There you go.
Yeah, I guess on a positive note here, Scott, yes, these are all devastating things to hear. But Paul Festival, kind of that light at the end of the tunnel, that whole uniting and creating awareness as to why we have these problems, from the politicians in office to special interests in the political process to the media and their influences throughout all around the country. What do you see? why are you going to be a part of Paul Festival? Do you see that light at the end of the tunnel of bringing everybody together to essentially reform our entire electoral system throughout the United States and replace these D's and R's who've been causing all these problems?
Well, I sincerely wish you a lot of luck in reforming the electoral system.
Do you think I'm going to do it without you?
Well, you know, I don't know exactly what I can contribute to that particular effort, but I do look at, as you're, you know, saying here, I do look at the Ron Paul thing as a real watershed, as a real change. You know, I'm convinced that if the politicians don't nuke us all to death somehow and humanity lasts on into the future, that Ron Paul will live in history for a long, long time to come. As, you know, we always have kind of this ebb and flow of the Enlightenment idea, the Jeffersonian kind of way of looking at things, public life anyway, in this country. And it comes and it goes. And for this time around, boy, did he just get that plumb line, you know, damn near perfected individualism. And he's such a great character for selling it to people, because I mean, the guy's middle name is Ernest, for crying out loud, and he is earnest. And he's such a polite and kind gentleman. Obviously, it's just written all over him, the authenticity there, as he is simply telling you the uncomfortable truth that you may not want to know, but you need to know it anyway, and believe me, I'm right, I got it right before kind of attitude. And he just has done so well at showing the individualist principle to the masses of Americans. He's you know, changed the minds and hearts of millions and millions of people, and in that order, I think. Maybe the other way around a lot of times too, I guess. Anyway, he's changed American history forever, and he's definitely changed. Well, he's created a future where we're going to have at least, hundreds and hundreds of new Austrian economists, where we'll have thousands of principled anarchists, and millions of new libertarians, you know, little L kind of minarchist libertarians around the society. They're going to be the swing vote that people have to fight over, not the horrible moderate who's actually an extremist and is for everything, you know, the previous centrist. It'll be the libertarian centrist, the anti-everything centrist that they have to please now. And, you know, I just think it's great, and I think Ron Paul is such a great guy. And, you know, not to ruin it or anything, but my speech is mostly just going to be about, isn't Ron Paul great? And me, you know, talking about all the things that I think are so great about Ron Paul, and what a great intellectual leader he is, and maybe a little bit about what bums the rest of the American people are for not giving him the shot, even after he gave him 2 chances on a silver platter here to have peace and liberty and prosperity here. You know, one last chance to repeal a bunch of this stuff before things really go further south. But, you know, anyway, I just think Ron Paul is the greatest American hero. This last 2 presidential campaigns are the greatest speaking tours on behalf of peace and liberty, the greatest publicity campaign on behalf of peace and liberty, and sound economics, real, you know, gold money economics. And it's like the nicest thing anybody ever did for anybody. It's absolutely great. And so if I can take part in that in any way, but just showing up and talking about how great it all is at the end, then I'm, you know, very happy to do so. I'm very happy to have the opportunity to do so, Christina. I thank you for it.
Yeah, Scott, I look forward to chatting with you a few times on the phone ahead of time, because there's just a lot more positive things that I need to take the time to update you on, as far as this being the beginning of a movement that is just historically has never evolved. And so I definitely look forward to updating you on that. And as far as what you can bring to the table, all I meant was your knowledge, what you know on this topic of foreign policy around the world. I mean, I don't know of anybody else that speaks, devotes, probably drinks, eats, sleeps, everything, you know, foreign policy. And I look forward to learning so much more about, you know, Syria and all these different countries and leaders, as I do anticipate traveling to a lot of places around the world in the future. I'm very happy to be only 31 right now. So, you know, so it'll be, again, your knowledge is so deep, and thank you for all that you've done with your work with anti-war, and hopefully this is a temporary dry spell for them, and who knows what will come of that great organization in the future. And definitely with Scott Horton, I recommend with your show you reach out, to groups like Marijuana Policy Project and Peter Schiff and a lot of people affiliated with Paul Festival, because I think that given your credibility and you being a part of Paul Festival, I want to see your show last for the foreseeable future, inevitably forever, at least during my lifespan. So.
Well, thanks very much. I'm definitely making a shot at it. A lot of people have been donating. In fact, I just got one here while I'm doing the show with you guys. And I'm very serious about doing everything I can to make this work. And I have, not too short, window of opportunity to make sure that it can. So I'm I have every reason to believe it's going to work out and be just fine. So, and I'm definitely going to try.
Yes, you and me both on the same wavelength there. So thanks, Scott. I can't wait to see you. And thank you so much for your support at Liberty Fest NYC, through Gigi Bowman and Ian. They're really big behind helping with the efforts here with Paul Festival. And Free and Equal, we hope to work with them. They're having another event in October, and something you might want to look forward to as well. And we may do an event in Chicago next year as well. So definitely I'm here to help you in any way I can, indirectly, directly with your radio show. And again, thanks for your time and just being the genuine person that you are, wanting to make not only the U.S. a better place, but the world. So. Well,
thanks very much for having me. I really appreciate it very much.
Cool. Take care, Scott. And Bryan, Kurt, I'm going to hop off here in a little bit. I'm feeling a little tired.
Not a problem. Thank you for all you've done today. It's been great. I think it's turned out to be a very good day and a lot of great interviews here today. We still got more coming up, obviously. We have Matlarson coming up. Jordan Page is still coming up, and Payday Monsanto is coming up. So there's still a lot to come, and appreciate your help, Christina. Thank you for all you've done today. And obviously, we've got all these great guests. Everybody's going to be at Paul Fest. We got great speakers, great bands performing there. This is our ticket drive today. This is the time to get your tickets at a discounted rate. Just go over to paulfestival.com, and you'll see the link there for the tickets, and you can be part of this great historical event. We look forward to it. Kurt, you look like you've had a long day, too.
Yeah, I've been sitting here for about 6 hours, so it's awesome. He's promoting it as a fun, and it definitely has been. And I was up late too, working, so it's been fun being able to talk to people like Adam and Peter and David and Scott. So it's one thing after another with guys coming at it from different angles and stuff like that. So it's been a great opportunity to just, meet some of these guys and tap into their minds and get their viewpoints on stuff.
Yeah, it was. Adam obviously comes with a lot of energy when you do an interview with him, and of course Peter Schiff is just chocked so full of knowledge. You kind of get that mixture with all these different guests we've had on today, and looking forward to some of them coming up. I definitely told Jordan to get his acoustic guitar ready, so maybe we'll get a song or two out of him during the set as well. Kind of give us a host a break and save our voices, huh?
Sure, that'd be great to hear him.
Yeah, I agree.
Well, I'm sorry we were able to actually get Tatiana on here fully. That would have been really nice. Maybe if you even heard the song from her.
Yeah, we're working on getting her back in here after Matlarson and see if we can make that happen. Waiting on Matlarson to come up. Matlarson is the Ron Paul reporter #1, he says. He's the guy who reports on everything Ron Paul campaign that the mainstream media won't report on. So we'll see if he's got any new and interesting news for us as this goes along as well. And here we go.
His YouTube channel, 10,000 subscribers, over 3.5 million video views. So he's definitely made himself known and felt out in the social media world with regards to Ron Paul and the Liberty Movement.
Hey guys, thanks for having me on. I appreciate it.
He is here. Thank you for coming on, Matt.
No problem. Enjoy the show so far. Great guests. I mean, Peter Schiff, it's pretty cool seeing him come on here, and I'm just really looking forward to seeing everyone down in Tampa.
Yeah, Peter Schiff is one of the definitely the people on the list. A lot of the other guests and that we're having there, I've seen around before, and not that I don't want to see him again. We got some great speakers. I've met Thomas Woods, and he does a great job, and we're looking forward to it. But I have not seen Peter speak, and I've not yet to meet him. So that's one of the people I'm definitely looking forward to, along with Lou Rockwell.
Yeah, I think I haven't had a chance to hear any of these guys speak before, so actually going down to Tampa and just being surrounded with other people that are liberty-minded, I think it'll really be a great event.
Yeah, I definitely, as we call it, the largest festival for freedom the world has ever seen is what we're looking to put on here. So you go around, you have your YouTube channel where you report on all the Ron Paul campaign stuff. What's new out there?
Today, actually, Ron Paul had his final day of talking to Ben Bernanke and the Fed, ending the Fed, basically. So that was a good one. Also, basically, I was just reporting a little bit more on the Joe Arpaio press conference and stuff like that. And actually, when I uploaded it, I got blocked. I had my video blocked and censored by YouTube. It was blocked worldwide, so I had to put up a video talking about that. And the censorship is kind of starting to show a little bit more on YouTube, so you kind of got to be careful. They put a strike on my channel, and they basically said if you take down the video, the strike will go away. So a little bit of politics there and a little bit of censorship, but
do they say why they're blocking you? Why they want that?
Yes, actually, it said that it Arizona also that it said it had content from. But I've heard from other people that actually were at the press conference that took video on their own. As soon as they uploaded their own copy of it and their own video they took, it was immediately taken down too. So,
do you have that happen to you often?
No, not very often. Every once in a while, I mean, if somebody tries claiming that I took some of their stuff, basically YouTube will look into it, and then if I have rights to it, my video stays up. I've only had that happen one other time than this, so normally YouTube's pretty good. A lot of people say that I don't switch up the pictures enough in my videos. I don't know if you've seen many of my videos, but I try to do mostly slideshows. There's some videos where it's actually my video and myself talking, but I always get consent from the copyright owner before I put up these videos. Therefore, my channel can't get taken out because I've worked on this channel for a long time, and I have a pretty large outreach of people that are subscribed to me, so it would be a pretty big loss to have that channel go down. So I try to always follow copyright rules when possible.
No, I thought with the local news there wasn't copyright issues there. I thought that was public, so.
Right, exactly. It should be fair use for sure. I mean, it's for educational, and it's not like I edited it or used it for any other purposes. Purely for educational purposes. So I don't know. It's just a lot of mumbo jumbo up there. But.
Yeah, it is. I've always been confused about that. I see some people put up, music from bands that definitely are copyright and they probably don't have permission, but seem to stay up there, and other people put something else up that seems less copyright problems and has it taken down.
For sure. But so
what did Ron Paul and Ben Bernanke have to say to each other? I'm sure it was a friendly conversation where they told each other how much they like each other, right? Actually,
it was kind of sickening. It was a love fest at the beginning. It was Barney Frank and then another guy talking about how they've just enjoyed listening to Ron Paul talk about all ending the Fed and auditing the Fed, and there's never been another person this stable and this much of a consistent rock in Congress. And if they love this guy so much, why don't they back him a little bit more and actually show some support for Ron Paul instead of just on the very last day where most people are going to be watching, that's when they kind of kiss butt to him. So that was kind of sickening to watch the love fest at the beginning. But Ron Paul, again, was the same message as always. I mean, Ron Paul is the most consistent person I've ever had the chance to listen to and hopefully have the chance to meet down in Tampa. Now, was this one of the where Ron Paul got to grill Ben Bernanke again, or? Yeah, This was up on C-SPAN. Basically, he was just questioning him. He asked Mr. Bernanke if he thought that deflation was a good thing or not, and it was just Bernanke basically put everything off on Congress, and it's Congress's fault, and he's just a slimy person. So Ben Bernanke doing what he does best.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure you don't get the position of Ben Bernanke without being a slimy person. I think that's a prerequisite for that position.
That is definitely how I think of him as a person, very slimy. So
Now Peter Schiff said today that it looks like Harry Reid's one of the big obstacles or holdups right now for Ron Paul's audit, the Fed bill getting pushed through. Do you see it that way?
yes, unfortunately, I think that it'll be hard unless there's a lot of senators that are actually up for re-election. Then maybe you'll see them actually pressing forward with this issue, but unless the congressmen and senators are up for election, they're not ever going to try to have their voting record actually look good because people don't look far enough back. So I think that they actually think that the American people are too stupid to actually look into their voting history. So we need to just keep these people more accountable for their actions and their voting records. So we need to just make sure we don't let any more of these, what I like to call 1 or 2 year senators, even though they serve out their full term, they only really truly represent us for maybe a year. And that's just the politics here, basically, where they need to go up for re-election.
Right. Now, do you actually...
What did you?
Go ahead.
What did you think today of Walter Jones actually giving up his time to let Ron Paul have, some extra time and getting at Bernanke and really attacking him on the secrecy of the Fed? I thought that was kind of interesting.
I think that kind of falls into the whole kind of love fest, basically, to where they try to make it look like I thought Ron Paul is this great guy, and it's a lot more politics to the politics, actually, I believe. I think that it was more for show. I don't know. It's I would have liked to have heard Walter Jones speak too. I like him, but I guess it was Ron Paul's final day, so they're going to have the spotlight a little bit longer.
Got it.
Now, do you actually go around and do events that the campaign puts on and follow the campaign, so to speak, or where do you get a lot of your news from?
Actually, a lot of it is subscriber-based. They send in a lot of information to me. I do a lot of digging during the day, but I actually haven't followed them. I was in Germany for the past 9 months. I just got back about 2 months ago, so I actually missed out on a chance of becoming a delegate in my state of Minnesota. I would have loved to have done that. I would have gone and supported them 110%. That's why I'm making sure I'm flying down to Tampa and covering as much of this as I can and just supporting the delegates and doing what I can to make sure the campaign's a success. I haven't given up yet, and I hope you guys haven't yet either.
Well, I don't think we'd be sitting here if we gave up. I think that's an obvious statement. There's been a lot out there. Ben Swan has reported that Ron Paul does have the 5 states to be on the ballot. There's been some other reports around the internet. I talked to Ron Paul Monday. He said that they do not have the 5 states to be on the ballot. Where do you see it? What do you found out there?
Rule 40 says that it has nothing to do with the binding of delegates. So regardless of who these delegates are bound for, if you have the majority of delegates from that state, whether they can vote for you or not on the first ballot, they're still able to put your name up for nomination. So Ron Paul does have it. Ron Paul has at least, I believe, 6 states to where he has the majority of delegates. Now, there are other states too, like Colorado, Louisiana, other states like that, Massachusetts, where Ron Paul's delegates have had their rights stricken from them. And we're still fighting for those. We're not giving up on those delegates yet either. And Ron Paul should have his name put up for nomination. If he does not, there will be a lot of hell down in Tampa. I promise you that. The delegates that are down there will cause a ruckus. There will be something where they are causing and calling for point of orders like every 2 seconds because they will have, I don't know how I want to phrase it, but they've just wasted a whole lot of Ron Paul delegates' time by having them down there and not being able to nominate Ron Paul.
Why would Ron Paul say that his camp believes that they don't have the 5 states? I mean, wouldn't they be up on this more than anybody else?
I think that they're still going. Here's my take on it. I think that they're going with the silent mode right here, where they're thinking if they stay under the radar, maybe the delegates themselves will start not Ron Paul delegates, because we understand how this is possibly getting played out. But sometimes no media is good media. So when we're not having to worry about the Ron Paul people, maybe some of these delegates won't be as on alert, and maybe the people out there that are pressuring the other delegates out there, they won't be pushing these people to get down there. So I'm going with the thought of it that Ron Paul is just laying low. Ron Paul has $3.3 million in the bank. There's something planned, whether that's to pay for his Ron Paul Festival on the 26th, whatever that is down in the Sundome, I don't know. But I think Ron Paul has a plan. He's not holding on to all this money for nothing.
Yeah, well, I don't think it will cost them $3 million to put on the festival at the Sundome down there for the time frame that they're doing it. I mean, I hope not. That doesn't seem very fiscally responsible to me. Yeah, I think everybody thinks that Ron Paul obviously has a plan and would like to know it. It would be interesting to me to know the lay low strategy on this. I mean, if the 5 states are there and everybody's accurate with that count. Why they would play the lay low strategy. That would be interesting to me to know.
I'm thinking that probably is coming out of the whole Rand Paul endorsement thing. It goes back to that far, I believe, to where it all kind of started. I kind of take that back. It kind of all started after we started winning those big string of states where Ron Paul was just racking up the delegates, and even the mainstream media was acknowledging Ron Paul. At that point, the media had to change their tactic, and the GOP had to change their tactic. They were realizing that if they had all 4 candidates still fighting for the nomination, there is a very good chance it would go to a brokered convention. So that is why you see the Santorum and the Gingrich people drop out so fast as soon as Ron Paul is gaining this momentum, because they're hoping to stop dividing the votes and the majority of the neocons then voting for Romney and trying to slow the momentum of Ron Paul. That didn't totally work. I mean, it did slow us down a little bit, but that's just because the media was doing what the media always does, and they were ignoring Ron Paul. Now they basically called Mitt Romney the presumptive nominee 4 months before it even started happening. So they had to change their tactics because Ron Paul was winning. That's what I believe. And so once that happened, Ron Paul kind of just had to let it slide, because he's not ever going to be able to outspend Mitt Romney. Plain and simple. You can't fight who is funding Mitt Romney. And Mitt Romney is funded by the media, he's funded by Goldman Sachs, JP Morgan, all these big power brokers. So Ron Paul understands he can't beat them with money, but he will beat them with the delegates. So he then stopped spending his money on advertisements and spent more money on making sure the delegates were actually becoming his.
Okay. I mean, it has its logic to it. I'm not going to argue with that. Obviously, we all know that there's no way, as you said, Ron Paul can compete financially with the Goldman Sachs people in this case. But it will be interesting to see how it all plays out come the convention. I mean, from all counts, most people are talking Ron Paul really only has 200 to 500 delegates. So, does that bring it down to a broker convention?
No, because there's, let's see, 1144 times 2. I believe it's 2287 or something like that for total delegates. So what they're trying to say that Mitt Romney he has roughly 1,500 or something like that, according to the mainstream media. 2288, sorry. So it wouldn't cause a brokered convention. But yet another thing too that I heard. Richard Gilbert, who is one of the main guys for Lawyers for Ron Paul, was talking about how he was in contact with Rick Santorum, and if the Lawyers for Ron Paul suit went our way, Rick Santorum would join the race again, because he never actually officially ended his campaign. He suspended it. So I believe that if Rick Santorum came back into the race, that could cause a brokered convention.
That would be interesting to see that happen. I've not been keeping up with the lawyers for Ron Paul. I thought the last time I heard or saw that they were not going through with their suit. Am I wrong on that?
I guess I haven't heard that they actually gave up on it. If they did, that's news to me.
Yeah, I mean, who knows? You know, with all the information out there on the internet, I could be reading some bogus bloggers news who doesn't like Ron Paul or the lawyers for Ron Paul. So, kind of hoping you had the information.
From everything that I understand, they're still going forward with it. And Steve Parent, you're okay, good. Okay, the suit's still going forward, I guess, because Richard Gilbert is the attorney for lawyers for Ron Paul. So.
Okay.
They're still going forward with it. I just saw that post was from maybe 2 days ago. So what I think would be really interesting is if actually Rick Santorum came back in, do you think that he would be considered an outsider from the GOP? Would he actually be his own independent person? Because if you think strategy-wise, the GOP would not want Rick Santorum to re-enter the race because that's just going to be stealing more votes from Mitt Romney. So do you really think that the GOP would allow him? Or if Rick Santorum does enter the race again, do we kind of consider him to be, actually, those are his true ideals? He's not actually controlled by the GOP. Maybe he honestly does believe that Iran is a threat to America, and he's not just following the George Bush rhetoric.
You know, I think I've always thought Rick Santorum was a good little GOPer, you know, not meaning I like him as that, but just that he's in with the party. He's in bed with the party, and the party says, Rick, back off. I think he'll back off. I don't think that he's got the ambitions at this point to do that. So I would be very surprised if he actually jumped back in.
I think it would be a political suicide for him if he did. I think that the GOP would, if anything happened to Mitt Romney and he went into a brokered convention, I think they would completely just crucify Rick Santorum for that.
I agree, although does he really have any more political career ahead of him? Isn't he already pretty much done?
I never thought he had to start, so.
Yeah. He's going to come back to Pennsylvania and ruin this state again.
Right.
Is that all?
Santorum has already come out saying if Ron Paul gets any kind of, if he gets to speak, if he gets the 5 states, that he's come out publicly saying he will get back into it. He will fight the Ron Paul people. He's said that.
Well, yeah, if he's a man of his word, he better get back in the race then.
Hey guys, can you give me a minute? Thanks.
Did your computer freeze, Bryan?
Other influences other than Ron Paul, Aaron Russo. I love some of his films. His documentaries are very good. Peter Schiff. I've watched a lot of interviews with Peter Schiff. Judge Napolitano. I love me some AP. He is amazing. Who else? I listen to some Lou Rockwell. John Stossel. John Stossel is probably, him and Napolitano are my only 2 people that I can stand to watch on Fox News. Stossel, I believe, is probably one of the funnier people on Fox News.
That was the only funny one.
I agree. There was a specific moment back in 2007. I was at work and I was talking about who I was going to vote for later on in that election cycle. I was an Obama guy. I hated Bush. I loved the way Obama talked. I thought that Obama was going to be the person to end the wars, lower our debt, bring the troops home, basically just bring a more conservative America back. And then someone at work showed me Aaron Russo's film, Freedom with Fascism, and that really woke me up. And then that's when I learned about Ron Paul, and I actually did not vote for a president back in 2008. just because I was moving in between. I didn't want to jump to Ron Paul too fast without actually learning more about him, so I learned more about him. And Ron Paul is definitely more than I could ever hope for someone in a candidate. I believe that Ron Paul just has the history, the background, just the integrity that you need for a statesman, and Ron Paul is a statesman.
Matt, what part of the country do you live in?
Sorry, what?
What part of the country do you live in?
I live in Minnesota.
Okay, so after that kind of moment right there, I mean, you're living in a state, is the area, was it predominantly Republican or Democrat or?
Democrat, actually. Minnesota, I believe, for the past 2 elections has voted Democratic. But evidently in the area that I live, we have a lot more Republicans. I live in a very old conservative part of Minnesota. There's a lot of older people, so it's more neocon than conservative, I should say. The George Bush lovers, I guess.
So I'm asking that just so I was curious, like you started having quote unquote conversion from being an Obama guy to a Ron Paul guy. At what point did it finally sink in, and then you started talking to other people, and did you find in your community, like-minded people who were, right there, or did you have to go on the internet to actually find like-minded people?
You know what? It's hard to talk politics with people around my area. They're just so fed up with it. I think that they vote party lines for the most part. There are a group of 3 or 4 guys that 3 or 4 times a week they stand out on the 2 of the busiest street corners in my town, and they stand there with their "Don't Tread on Me" flag and their Ron Paul big banner that they hang out, and people honk. I mean, you get a ton of honks, ton of waves. I've gone and stood outside with them a couple times, and I'd like to actually go out there and do that and film a video and just see how many people actually say hi to you. I think you'd be surprised on how many more people are awake to Ron Paul, do like him, but they go with this preconceived notion that Ron Paul's not electable, even though he's a 12-term congressman. He seems pretty electable to me. They say they'd like to vote for him, but they just don't think he can win. So I'd like to see how many people actually say that.
Yeah, that's always something I always kind of thought, even when I was, much younger, I would hear so many people would say, hey, from I don't think there's a chance. And I thought, if we took all those people who said that, whoever we think would lose would actually vote, right? So that's what I felt about Ron Paul. A lot of people thought, oh, he doesn't have a chance. If we took all those people, he would definitely, I think, have a greater chance of winning there. But just kind of go back to my question. At what point, you said you didn't vote for a president in 2008. At what point did that final conversion really happen? What was the tipping point for you?
Shortly after 2008, when Obama didn't start taking home the troops, he didn't shut down Gitmo. He just started breaking promise after promise after promise. Basically, that was it. That was the nail in the coffin for me. Ron Paul, I had enough time to look into his record a little bit more, into actually how he talked, how he voted, and that sealed the deal for me. I was then a Ron Paul supporter.
And what made you have the impetus to start a YouTube page, that was geared towards him?
Well, actually, I started that YouTube page back in 2007, and it wasn't until I started going to law enforcement school did I start making political videos, because that's when I started getting more educated on the actual laws and just the learning how policemen are taught and how other things are perceived. That's when I started making more political things, but I didn't go completely hardcore Ron Paul videos until about early January of this year. But I mean, I talked about the TSA, I talked about naked body scanners, I talked about other constitutional items and things like that before in a couple of my videos. But before, my YouTube channel was strictly fun, laid back thing, and I really switched the direction on it in about January.
Was there a particular issue that really got you, okay, I got to do this, I got to come after, the people, let them know about Ron Paul?
The debt. I honestly think that the debt is, and the ensuing crash of the dollar. I have a lot of family that's in banking, and they actually talked to me about the Fed, and they kind of started talking to me about it a little bit more, and they agreed with me. They agreed with Ron Paul. They agreed that the Fed is the cause, the root of many of our problems. And the thing that really made me change on it was I want to leave America a better place for my children than how I inherited it. And if we continue to surmount this crushing debt, there's no way that I can give my kids a better America than I got. And that's what made me change. I honestly don't think that in my lifetime America will ever be the same that it was before the Fed. We will never have that type of prosperity because the evil and corrupt is so deeply rooted in America. Just getting a Ron Paul presidency is not the final answer. We still have to start at our local level and start gutting out government all the way from our city officials all the way up to the president. And just because you cut the head off the beast doesn't mean the beast is going to die and stop moving. We need to start from the ground level and work our way up through government and getting all the corrupt individuals out and getting the right people in.
Well, I wanted to ask you some things about the Ron Paul bus, but you brought an interesting point about the local level and being in Minnesota. Many people in the Liberty Movement up in Minnesota are aware of the Bank of North Dakota and how it's, basically state-sponsored capitalism there that seems to be working because that state's red. Do you guys talk about that much up there?
Not as much, actually. I mostly focus on the Fed, but a lot of people, we do talk about the unemployment rates of North Dakota, about how much more money and how fast their state is booming. A lot of it has to do with a lot of free market. A lot more entrepreneurs are going out there for the oil fields, creating their own businesses. I know 3 or 4 people that my dad worked with, and actually people I graduated with, their families started businesses, whether it's trucking and hauling out water or oil away from the oil fields, going out and spraying weeds in the ditches out in the oil field. People are a lot more capitalistic out there and a lot more free market, and actually there's less government out there putting red tape around things, and you can actually be a lot more of an entrepreneur out there compared to a state like Minnesota.
Yeah, I thought it might have a little more effect on you guys, but thanks for letting me know about that. So I take it you're pretty jazzed about coming down to Florida in August.
I am very excited. I booked my flight, and I am going down there on the 23rd and coming back on the 27th. So I plan to go to the march and to the Sundome rally, and I honestly think Paul Fest will be the highlight of my life so far.
You love that.
I was
Cool.
I was supposed to
Any
ask.
particular speaker that's really looking forward to meeting? I'm going.
No, go ahead.
A particular speaker that I'm looking forward to?
I was saying, guy you were looking forward to hearing?
All of them. I want to hear Jordan Page live. I want to see Peter Schiff talk. I want to hear Lou Rockwell. Every single person down there has a message that we all need to listen to and learn from. And everyone, all of them. It's not even as much about the speakers as it is just being around so many liberty-minded people and just being able to have conversations. Yes, it's nice having speakers up on stage, but I think that the true enjoyment that I'll get out of it is actually being one-on-one, talking with all these people that I've talked to on these chat sites and actually meeting them in person. And just, it would be like a utopia if you think about it. Being down there in a place where we don't agree on everything, but we agree on the main issue, and that's freedom and liberty. If we could make America like that down there in Tampa for those 3 days, make that America for the rest of our lives, I think that'd be pretty amazing.
Now, I was supposed to ask you, what is this about you sharing a bed with Dr. Steve?
Dr. Steve and I are no longer sharing a bed. I found that he has a fascination for 23-year-old boys, so I kind of got to watch out for that.
I'm surprised he goes as old as 23.
You know, me too. I fight back a lot harder than those 17-year-olds.
Oh, he's the one who set up for that, just so you know. He's the one who...
I know. He's razzled me about that plenty, so...
Every chance to get
What's that?
Every chance he gets, he does that. It's pretty funny.
Yeah. He says you're fired, Matt.
I never signed my contract in the first place, Steve. You can't fire me. I quit.
I told him that same thing. Oh man, that's good stuff. It's towards the end of the night here with all this kind of joking going on.
It's time to have a little laugh and have a little fun. You know, you can be serious for most of the day, but there's a time and place for laughter in the movement too.
Yeah, I agree. What went on with your parade and your signing there, Tracy? Your signatures.
What happened was the sky just opened up like I'd never seen it before, and the thunder and the lightning, so they canceled the thing until tomorrow. So my grandmother and my sister just left, and I hadn't had time to really prepare for this, but here I am. Hi.
Hi. You missed everything this evening.
I always do.
Yeah. It's your channel, and you miss it all.
I know. It's not right.
No, it's not. It really isn't.
So, do we have any update by any chance on how we're doing today?
We probably won't have that update until tomorrow.
I heard there's a lot of stuff going on, and we're doing pretty well. That's the going through the grapevine. People are excited, just like I am.
Is that your excited face?
I had my excited face today, and I was spinning around in my chair in my office.
Getting rickrolled.
I know. Oh, goodness. Yes, Daniel, congratulations, and we can't wait to see you.
Oh, look at that. Yeah. A
Great.
VIP. There you go. That's the one to get. Yeah, that's an upgrade. That gets you all the good stuff.
Oh, I'm supposed to ask you, Brian, is there any way that we can get press passes down there?
That we can get what?
Press passes?
Yeah, we're working on a way to do the press passes so people can fill out online and do the request and we can fulfill them. So I assume you're looking for one?
I would very much like one.
Yes, and the Fish sisters would like one as well.
I don't know. I'm going to need, put this on a bidding system.
Ouch.
Yeah, I already told them that I had their back, so don't make me look stupid.
Well, now the challenge accepted.
Steve told me he had my back too, but then I felt a little uneasy knowing that he was facing my back, so I kind of turned around really fast.
Then you feel uneasy either way you face there.
Exactly. Then you got to see him.
We actually got Dr. Steve to turn on a webcam. Can you believe that?
Yeah, I've seen him on it twice, and it's a sight to see. That's for sure. Steve is a good-looking young man, I guess.
You gotta wonder if that wasn't somebody else there with Steve's voice.
I think he just put a Bieber photo up on his face. He just superimposed one right there.
Actually, I have one kind of like that. Steve sent this to us back in '08. I guess it was some kind of modeling shoot or something.
You know what we need to do? We need to get a picture of Steve's face and put it up on your cardboard cutout back there of Ron Paul.
You're right.
And then
go ahead.
And then we just stare at Steve Parent's face.
Oh, this is too much. I'm Tracy. I'm going to send you this picture of Dr. Steve. You're going to laugh.
He can't even defend himself up here.
My chat froze, so I can't see anything anymore. It stopped scrolling.
Kurt, I haven't met you, so I just want to introduce myself. I'm Tracy Diaz. It's nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
This is actually her channel that we hijacked, Kurt.
That's what I figured out.
It's my little room, my little home away from home, so to speak.
And then you didn't even get to enjoy the fruits of your labor. Everybody else was doing that today, so that's too bad.
I was at work I was slaving to the man.
I'm going to be taking some of the interviews on day and putting them up on the Ron Paul Fest page. So.
Awesome.
And actually, guys, I hate to run, but I got to take off. I have my own show in about 30 minutes, so I got to prepare for that and make sure all the other guests are coming on there. But I appreciate having me on. It was a lot of fun. Shared some good laughs.
Hey, thank you for coming on. It was information is always good, and conversation is always good. We appreciate it. We'll get the information out on that press passes as well.
Okay, perfect. Thank you very much, Brian. Thank you, Kurt. So nice meeting all you guys, and hope to see everyone down in Tampa.
Have a good day.
Great.
Later, guys. Later, Tracy.
Bye.